All right, here we are back with another edition of a different kind of power rankings using analytics to, at least my brand of analytics to determine who has played the best so far this season. Couple things worth mentioning if this is your first time. This is not a predictive power rankings in any way. It's simply talking about what you've done so far. So the more intriguing thing is kind of who's been lucky and who's been unlucky, I think, more so than who actually, is going to win the Super Bowl. Although I also think that kind of ties in together a little bit, and you'll see how that goes. The way I figured this stuff out is simply I use Pro Football Focus's grades, and I look at how many points that typically equates to you given each positional grouping. I'll show the first panel and you'll understand it a little bit better if this is your first time. All right, so here we go. On the bottom, that's your little answer key. On the top, that's going to be each team. So if you look at, let's say, the number 32 team, the New York Jets, they get 1.14 wins for their offensive line. That's where they ranked in their Pro Football Focus grade, which gets them on average 1.14 wins. You go to the answer key at the bottom. That means they're tier 3. Everything is tier 1 through 5. So yeah, these are the bottom 4 teams. No real surprises here. The Jets are very bad. We all know this. The offensive line's played well. That's literally been it. So again, all the way over at the right, what you see there is the total number of wins projected for the entire season. You don't have WE, which is wins earned. So they've earned 1.3 wins. Do have 3 wins though. So they're actually a team that's they're a team that's overperformed despite the fact that they're haven't performed that well. Number 31, you have the Texans. So the Texans here, again, not a lot to write home about here. They at least have a few different categories where they're decent, right? A tier 4 receiving room. A little bit of stuff with the run defense, but not much going on. Same thing with Jacksonville and with the Lions. I don't have too much else to add to these two teams, to be honest. They both have okay offensive lines. You got that going for you. And the Jaguars have solid coverage, so at least that's decent. Lions have better kicking, so they have that. Again, not much going on with really any of these 4 teams. Okay, next 4. So the Pittsburgh Steelers here at 28. Steelers aren't good. I've been saying this basically all season. Not a good football team. However, they've overperformed massively. This is kind of one of those things. The Steelers always kind of seemingly overperform this, and part of it just is because of good coaching, I think. But regardless, 5.5 wins, despite the fact that they really only deserve 1.9 if all these tiers are correct. And again, I don't disagree with that many of them. Maybe, I don't know. Is wide receiving tier 5? Should it be tier 4? Still not great. There's a lot of issues with this team. And with some of the injuries, pass rush has fallen out of tier 1. So even that isn't spectacular. Number 29, you have the Carolina Panthers, who really a lack of points on their offense. Only 0.63 points on their offense. Defense is still solid. It's getting you some stuff there, and that's why they've been able to win games. They've only earned 2.8 wins. They have 5 wins. So they've definitely overperformed pretty significantly, despite the fact that they still, don't have a fantastic record. This algorithm, not a fan of the Carolina Panthers. Number 26, you have the New York Giants here. So the New York Giants currently sitting at 3.1 wins earned. A big chunk of that is Daniel Jones being a tier 3 quarterback and their coverage being tier 3. So that's where their kind of value has really come in. It's with that stuff. And finally, number 25, the Bears. There is a bit of a tier gap here a little bit, as you have over a win jump in terms of your projection through 17, because they do have actually some decent stuff here. Tier 4 quarterback play. Andy Dalton has graded well with the Pro Football Focus graders, so that's helped for sure. And even Justin Fields has had his moments, absolutely. Offensive line's been tier 3. Wide receiving room has been tier 3. And they got some other stuff across the board. Nothing fantastic, but you're at least getting some wins across the board. So with all of that, they basically not overperformed or underperformed. They're not a great team, but they at least are competent. Next 4. So we have the Seattle Seahawks here at 24. What a disappointment they have been. tier 3 quarterback play. We kind of all just wrote that in pen. It would be tier 1 heading into this season. Obviously, Russell Wilson, when he was injured, we're thinking, okay, Geno Smith, it's over. But then he comes back and they look even worse. So I don't know what's going on exactly there. Very bizarre. Run defense is good. You got that going for you. So that's kind of the biggest feather in your cap. But also they're a team that's actually, they've underperformed their expected win total, which isn't much to begin with. Only 4.1 expected or really earned wins, which would be a 6.39 win team over 17. They only have 3 wins now, so not a great football team. No real shock there. Number 23, the Washington football team, who they're playoff contenders. I think they're, I'm not sure if they're going to get it. They might, just because of the weird way the NFC has shaken out, although I wouldn't put a bunch of money on them. Offensive line's played well. That's what they really have going for them. Again, offensive line and pass rush has been tier 1 consistently throughout. So that's what they have going for them. And how about quarterback play jumping into that tier 4 range? We kind of expected it to be tier 3 with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but being tier 4, there's a big difference between that and tier 5. So that's going to get you a win, and that kind of really does make this team better. How much better, though, is the question, because, again, their coverage has still been tier 5 this season. Receiving core is getting better, but will it be better enough? Number 23, the Atlanta Falcons. So for the Atlanta Falcons, still have tier 3 quarterback play from Ryan. Matt Ryan's played very inconsistent this season, but has had his moments. And again, solid stuff from the receiving core. A lot of that is Cordero Patterson. Solid stuff from their offensive line, nothing spectacular, which is, actually kind of surprising. Like, I would have had their offensive line graded lower because it's had some really bad games. They give him, a mediocre grade. But part of this, too, is, it doesn't take into account if you have one horrible guy and one great guy, you're probably going to have a lot of pressure, but they kind of grade that evenly. So maybe an uneven offensive line would actually be better than a bad offensive line in terms of the system, but not actually better in football. So maybe there's a flaw there, or maybe not. I don't know, but that's fascinating. And number 21, also very fascinating with the Kansas City Chiefs here. They're a team that's apparently overperformed at, 4.9 wins earned. They've won 7 games, but part of me does wonder, it's like, okay, even if Mahomes hasn't had his best season, he's certainly done a lot just with the threat of Mahomes himself, just with having a guy wearing the number 15 jersey back there. That's giving you value already. So maybe there's some of that going in, or maybe just some of these grades are a little bit harsh. I mean, I do agree that okay, the coverage being tier 3, that checks out, and then the rest of the defense not really giving you anything, that checks out. I would also say that offensive line being tier 1, maybe a bit high, but it's been very good. It definitely is, at least I think, tier 2. And then, Mahomes has had some ups and some downs. So he's a tier 3 quarterback grade-wise, but maybe better in actuality. All right, next 4. So the Baltimore Ravens are sitting here at 20, despite the fact that, most people consider them a championship contender. So this is where I really do feel like the Ravens are one of the teams that the algorithm just gets wrong. That's really how I feel about it. I think this is a flaw in the system, and I don't know exactly how to fix it, because the issue is currently the Ravens have a tier 2 running game and a tier 4 quarterback game, and I just don't agree with that. You would think that they should have an easy tier 1 running game and better than a tier 4 quarterback game. I kind of think just the system doesn't know exactly how to work in rushing quarterbacks, and that's why the Ravens kind of are consistently lower than I think they should be. So I would probably give them a couple more wins at least, which still wouldn't have them that high. I mean, their coverage being tier 4, but it played really well against Cleveland, so I think that's a little bit low as well. I think I just disagree with a lot of these grades, which again, I like Pro Football Focus. They're not gods. I can disagree with some of their stuff, but that's where they end up. I would have them higher personally, because currently they should be a 5-win team according to this system, and they've won 8 games. I think maybe they have overperformed, but I'm not sure if this is only a 5-win team. I think they're better than that. And of course, that would mean a 7.6-win team over 17. Going to the Miami Dolphins, who have had a very interesting, rise here. Tua has gone all the way up to a tier 2 quarterback. And one of the things I think I've learned from PFF, is I think they just value quarterbacks differently than most people, certainly than I do, because I think they kind of value just sort of the little things a lot more. I kind of like to look at it and say, well, what are the big things you do? What are the the splash plays? But if you do have that kind of mindset with a quarterback of what do you like about the little things, Tua is your guy. He's currently sitting at tier 2 quarterback play, and there's a lot of wins across the board of this Miami Dolphins team. Solid wide receiving play, good run defense, solid coverage, and I think the coverage is underrated. So they're getting stuff done there, and they've currently overperformed, but only by a little bit. Are they good enough to make the playoffs? I don't know, but they're maybe better than I thought they would be heading into this season. Certainly better than I thought they would be just a few weeks ago. So, but the question is really how much better. Number 18, you have the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are just an interesting team. They need to figure out the quarterback position. I think now Taysom Hill's going to start. So, what's going on there? Receiving core actually hasn't been a massive issue for them, according to PFF. And the defense has played well, but it's the quarterback play. Offensive line hasn't graded as well as you would have thought they would. So they're kind of right where they should be at 5.3 wins. They've won 5 games. They're mediocre. Again, could be another team fighting for that last NFC playoff spot. And finally, number 17, the Cleveland Browns here. Cleveland Browns, again, there's a lot to like about this team, but they can't really get over the hump too much because, yes, really good offensive line, tier 4 quarterback play. And I honestly think that might be a little generous. I mean, it's been rough at times, and the wide receiving play has not gotten it done. That was a big issue against Baltimore. So, again, was it Baltimore's coverage or was it the Cleveland Browns receiving core? You be the judge, but that's a real issue. You have, their coverage has been very well, and their defense is graded very well for PFF, but when you can't move the ball, it doesn't really matter. They had a great defensive game against Baltimore, but again, did not matter. So they're currently projected for a 9-win season, which would not be a playoff team. Obviously, or maybe it would. I mean, who knows? Because the 9 wins might get you in, but at least in terms of this system, it wouldn't. All right, next for Indianapolis Colts. Colts have continued to climb. Colts at one point were a bottom 5 team according to this system, but that was early on when they had a lot of injuries and weren't playing that well. They've played a lot better, and they've earned a top half of the league grade, I think, here. You look at all the way over their wins earned, 6.5 wins earned. They've won 6 games, so they've even underperformed a little bit now, according to this. A big chunk of this is Jonathan Taylor. He has the 2.5 wins there that you get for a tier 1 running back. That elite running back does really change the game. Teams have to approach you differently. It didn't happen too much against Tampa Bay, but it has happened for the most part. So he's their biggest part of their team. But, Carson Wentz, tier 3, that's a win for you. Like, you'll take that. Offensive line, tier 3, and it's probably better because part of why it was, they were so bad early on was offensive line issues. As they get healthier, it's probably better. And then you just have a pretty complete team. Tier 4 wide receiver play, you'd like that to be better, but at least it's solid. You have, tier 2 run defense. That's very good. Tier 4 coverage, you'd like that to be better. That's probably the biggest issue of this team, I would say, is that in the receiving game. But you still have some stuff where you have some solid things here. Colts are a pretty solid team. And also, how about number 15, the Denver Broncos, a team that a lot of us have kind of written off, but they're pretty, similar to the Colts. Now, they don't get their wins on offense with the running game. They get it through their receivers. But other than that, kind of, same offensive line tier, same quarterback tier. And then the difference on defense, of course, is that they cover a lot better, although haven't rushed the passer particularly well. But that being said, they're currently 6.1 wins. A lot of people feel like they're not as good as their record. This algorithm says, no, they're pretty much right where they should be. Number 14, the Minnesota Vikings, who, yes, you're reading that quarterback line correctly. I did not read it hypo. PFF has Kirk Cousins as a tier 1 quarterback. They love Kirk Cousins. He has played very well this season. I keep saying this. It's like, are they weirdly high on Cousins? Yeah, kind of. Has Cousins been very good? Also, yeah, kind of. Good wide receiving play as well. They should use them more. That's kind of the biggest thing because I do think their coaching hasn't been spectacular because you have some stuff on defense as well. According to this, they should be a 6.4 win team. They're only a 5-win team, and it falls more on coaching than luck to me. Number 13, you have the Chargers, who they're an odd team, so they're grading well here. Obviously, disappointing loss. I've kind of talked about how basically they can't throw over the middle. Like, they do everything else really well on offense except for that. So that's kind of an odd thing about them. I think they could use a third option, really. That's kind of a big issue, is they could use a slot receiver. I think that's what they need because, Herbert still played well. I think there's kind of become some Herbert slander, which I guess that's the natural progression, is everyone goes, oh my God, Herbert is amazing. And then you have a bad game and everyone says, oh, maybe Herbert isn't amazing. Like, no, Herbert's still amazing that he's this good as a second-year player. But, I guess it's fair to say not perfect. And the defense, obviously, the running game hasn't been spectacular, but they're still the kind of team that's built the right way. They're built to throw the ball. They're built to prevent you from throwing the ball. It's going to create some bad matchups, but it'll probably work out more often than it won't. All right, next 4 here. So you have the San Francisco 49ers at number 12 here. Niners have continued to climb. That tier 1 receiving grade, which we thought that would be a real strength of this team heading into the season, kind of hadn't been at times, but now is back, so that's cool to see. Tier 1 offensive line, that checks out. Trent Williams, fantastic. And also tier 3 quarterback play, which that is Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a tier 3 quarterback, has played worse than a tier 3 quarterback at times this season, but is back in that tier 3 range. Also their defense, they stop the run well and they cover solidly well. I think their coverage is actually underrated because, again, it's gotten better as the season has progressed. So while they're projected for 10.35 wins, I actually think they might be a little bit underrated. It might be a little bit better. Number 11, this is a very interesting situation. The Tennessee Titans, I do find them to be very fascinating because, it's hard, and the algorithm can kind of spit out incorrect data here, given the fact that a lot of their talent has been hurt. So, receiving core and running game might not be as good as it actually grades, even though it's not spectacular to begin with. This is the team, make no mistake about it at this point, that is a coverage team that has Ryan Tannehill. That's what they can do at this point. But that still is going to probably be enough to get you into the playoffs, given the fact that you've already won 8 games. You'll probably win a couple more and get in, and we'll see how that goes. Number 10, we have the Las Vegas Raiders here. So Las Vegas Raiders sitting at number 10. Raiders are a team that has always kind of overperformed what I would have expected them to get here in the algorithm. But part of it is, I put a lot of strength on wide receivers and quarterback, and PFF loves their receivers, and, I love their quarterback as well. Derek Carr, very good. Tier 2 here with a tier 1 wide receiving game, and they cover well and pass rush very well. So that's kind of where they're at. They're definitely a Derek Carr dependent team, but hey, if you're going to be dependent on one guy, not the worst guy in the world to be dependent on. And number 9, you have the Arizona Cardinals, but keep in mind with Arizona, a big chunk of this is because Kyler has been hurt. The quarterback play has fallen to tier 2. Kyler himself is an easy tier 1 quarterback. So once Kyler is back, you have tier 1 quarterback play. So, add 1.2 wins to that total. So you have the, great wide receiver play. Obviously, again, Hopkins' injury has, hurt them at times as well. But once you get fully healthy, they still rush the passer well. They still cover well. They block solid. The run defense is an issue, but, outside of that, they've still played very well, and they're well coached as well. They've overperformed. To me, that's more on coaching than it is on them getting lucky. That's how I view that. So Arizona is number 9 here, but make no mistake, they are a championship contending team. All right, next 4, you have the Cincinnati Bengals, who, look at that quarterback play. How about tier 1 quarterback Joe Burrow? That's kind of a surprise. Burrow's played well, though. Not sure about tier 1 well, but he has played well. You have a tier 2 wide receiving room. That checks out. They've been very good. And, solid coverage unit. Not spectacular defense, but this is definitely a team that's kind of on the strength of a quarterback being here at 8. I'm not quite sure if I would go that far, so maybe you knock them down a peg or two, but they're still, a top 10 to 12 team, I think, for sure. And maybe you disagree. Who knows? Number 7, the Green Bay Packers, who they're another team who started low and just had to continue climbing higher and higher and higher. They're actually here on the strength of their running game. It's actually receivers and running game, which is kind of funny because, Aaron Rodgers, what was the narrative? Is that, they need to get Aaron Rodgers some help. And while I've at times agreed with that over the course of Rodgers' career, this is not one of them. This is a loaded team. This is a very good team, even with the injuries, which, maybe they're even better than what this projects them to. And if you don't believe Aaron Rodgers is a tier 3 quarterback, you probably think he should be even higher. Now, I'd put Rodgers higher than tier 3. I've heard him get some MVP buzz. Part of that is just, we don't know who should win MVP, but I don't think, I wouldn't go that far. I think that he's played very well. He's done what the offense has asked him to do, but this is a running heavy team. The running game has set up a lot for Green Bay, and their defense is playing well on top of it, and I fully expect that Rodgers can turn it up and become that tier 1 quarterback. And once that happens, look out. They might be the best team in football once that happens. Number 6, we have the Philadelphia Eagles here, who their offensive line is currently tier 2, so good offensive line, and solid quarterback play with Jalen Hurts. The real reason why they're so high here at number 6 is their running game. You have that 2.5 swing. But, it's fascinating, right? Because no one thinks of the Philadelphia Eagles as a top 6 team in football. And again, like I kind of always say, notice the total wins that you're projected through 17. It's very close with a lot of these teams. The Eagles would fall all the way down to 14th if they went from tier 1 running game to tier 2. But I actually do think their running game is tier 1. So I think that would be hard to do. Solid receiving play, and again, just solid stuff across the board is kind of what's made this team so well. And if they take advantage of the running game more, I think they would probably win more games because they're a team that's massively underperformed the algorithm. The question is it an issue with the algorithm? Is it bad luck, or is it bad coaching? I don't know. That's a very tough question. Number 5, we have the Dallas Cowboys, who are still very good. Tier 1 quarterback, tier 1 wide receiving room. That's going to get you a lot of wins. And tier 1 offensive line. So offense doing its part in the running game has at times looked like a tier 1 running game. So if that was the case, that makes this a really complete offense. Defense has had its ups, it's had its downs, so that's where the intrigue comes in. But Dallas still very good. And all right, final 4. I know you've all looked up at number 1, and honestly, number 4 is the biggest surprise to me. The LA Rams, who have been reeling a bit, the algorithm still likes and says, no, this team is still good. Do not panic. And I don't totally disagree. So tier 1 offensive line, that's going to help. That's going to win you some games. And tier 3 quarterback play from Stafford, that feels right. He's had his really high highs, but he's had some really low lows. So if you can get a consistent Stafford, honestly, typically I expect Stafford to be a tier 2 quarterback. So you get that added win total, that would put you up here to number 3 overall. The receiving core has still been solid. Part of me does wonder, though, losing Robert Woods hurts, and that's not something they're getting back. So what do you do about that? Defense still has graded very well, even though it's had some not spectacular moments, but I think that it should be very good. I don't know, maybe it's a bit overrated because, it's not like their points per drive or anything is that special, but that's kind of a unique scenario. Is the talent is seemingly still there, it's just not working. Is that, losing Brandon Staley? But I don't know, Raheem Morris has been pretty good over his career, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. And then, but yeah, so they're a team that, again, they should have, they have 8.1 wins earned. They've won 7 games, so that itself it's only 1 win away, so they're kind of right on the money there. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills here. So they're another team that, they've earned 8.4 wins, and they only have, 7. So they've a little bit underperformed, but not massively. They have, tier 2 quarterback play this season. Josh Allen has had some bad games, but we all know elite Josh Allen is a tier 1 quarterback. The one thing I'm still confused by is just the Buffalo Bills tier 1 running game that PFF has been on basically this entire time. So I'm not exactly sure I understand that. But again, I think one thing worth mentioning is it includes quarterback play. So guys like Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, those guys are getting it because of, the fact that Josh Allen, also runs with the football. So they've been solid as well. I think those are 2 guys that are mostly just runners, don't do a lot of the other stuff particularly well. But we're just talking about how well you run. and them with Josh Allen, that actually does kind of make more sense, even though on first glance it seems insane. Number 2, how about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here? So there's a very fascinating thing with Tampa Bay, and it's their coverage. Their coverage sitting at tier 1 is surprising, to say the least, and it makes me wonder, how is it number 1? Look at how bad their corners have played. What it is because of their safeties. Their safeties have been fantastic. You know, Antoine Winfield has been awesome, of course. You also have Mike Edwards and Jordan Whitehead, 2 really good safeties who are kind of underrated. You know, Winfield gets all the credit. On top of this, Jamel Dean, while he did recently just get banged up, he's been a consistently good and highly graded corner for PFF. So the other corners, you know, haven't done a fantastic job, but you also factor in Levante David, because linebackers do matter, although then you also have to count Devin White, so it goes both ways. But that's a bit surprising, though. I certainly wouldn't have it tier 1, so they're probably should be lower, but still, they're projected for 13.4 wins, so they're still a very good team. Obviously, tier 1 quarterback play from Brady, that's true. He's been fantastic this season. Tier 2 offensive line, or you could honestly even argue that should have been tier 1. Offensive line has been very good this season. So there's a lot to like about Tampa Bay, although I do think that coverage is probably not tier 1. I wouldn't go that far, although their receiving core probably is tier 1 once Antonio Brown gets healthy, so it goes both ways. And finally, yes, everyone's favorite team, the New England Patriots here. It's just fantastic. I mean, look at how much wins they're projected is 16.35. This is like a dominant football team is what this algorithm is saying. And look across the board. Tier 2 offensive line play, tier 1 quarterback play, and tier 1 receiving play, and tier 1 running game play. So you have basically a perfect offense according to PFF. Offensive line is only tier 2 instead of tier 1. Other than that, things are running fantastically well. You would probably say, well, why aren't they scoring more points if this is the case? But they're actually, this might be a surprise to some people, they've scored the 4th most points per drive in the league. So their offense has done incredible, and they've scored the most defensive, or given up the least amount of points per drive defensively. So that's another interesting aspect. Also worth mentioning, Buffalo is 2nd in offensive points per drive and 2nd in defensive points per drive. So it kind of makes you wonder with that kind of stuff. You know, those 2 teams are playing each other. You're going to get good on both sides of the ball. That should be very fascinating. Also, Patriots defense cover very well, as they always do, and the other stuff is good enough. The one kind of maybe chink in their armor could be the running game. So we've talked about maybe for the Bills, you have Josh Allen run the football a lot. That actually seems like a pretty good strategy to beat New England. I don't know, but very fascinating. So yeah, these are the 32 teams. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. We're back. Sorry I missed last week. Just too busy with real world stuff, but happy to be back. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below. What did you think about this? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.